And today I'm going to be talking about self-managed super funds, okay, how to set one up, the ongoing costs, what you need to look out for, whether it's worth opening one up. Anyway, let's crack into it. A little disclaimer before I kick off. Okay, I'm not your financial advisor. I'm just a guy that has set up a self-managed super fund, and this is what I've learnt from setting up a self-managed super fund. But by all means, if you're thinking about setting up one, I would do some research, talk to your accountant, talk to people in the know about self-managed super funds, as this is quite a unique, specialised area, and the rules and legislation around self-managed super funds is always changing. So you need to have a chat to someone that's up to date with everything that's happening in the current self-managed super fund environment. Anyway, that's that. Let's crack into it. Also, one other thing, I probably wouldn't recommend opening up a self-managed super fund unless you've got a minimum of $100,000 within your super, okay? It's just not worth the ongoing costs to set up a self-managed super fund. But that's only my personal opinion. Obviously, if you've got 20 grand in there and you think it's a good idea and you want to do it, then go ahead. But on my take, I wouldn't even really start looking at it unless you've got that minimum 100,000. Even probably better would be 200,000, but just, yeah. So bear that in mind. Anyway, so you've decided, you know, you want to open up a self-managed super fund, great. So you've had a chat to your accountant, you know, they'll put you onto someone or they're doing it for you. The next thing they'll want to ask you would be, do you want a corporate trustee or an individual trustee, okay? Your self-managed super fund is essentially its own entity or trust. So they will probably steer you in the way of doing a corporate trustee, which is great. I would recommend going down the corporate trustee road, especially if you're looking at maybe partnering up with your wife or your husband or your kids or your brothers, aunties, uncles, whoever you want to all sort of pull your money together into one self-managed super. Having it in a corporate trustee name will make it a lot easier, especially as people's life changes throughout life, and they may come or go from that particular trust. It's a lot easier through a corporate trustee, as all the assets within that corporate trust are in the corporate trustee's name rather than personal individual trustees' names. It's a little bit complicated, but took me a little bit to wrap my head around that one. But definitely probably go down the corporate trustee rather than the individual trustee. And you've also got a little bit more protection in the corporate trustee with regards to if you have your own business, let's say, if there's a chance of you getting sued, they'll have a lot more harder time trying to get money out of your assets within your super. So just another little easy, and it costs the same basically to have a corporate trustee to individual trustee. I think the difference was a couple $100 initially in the first initial opening of the self-managed super. So yeah, those are the two sort of differences between corporate trustee and individual trustee. Like I said, it is a little bit confusing, but that's my basic sort of take on it. Probably go the corporate trustee. All right, so you've decided you want to go down that road. Okay, now you're going to create the trust. A lot of this you're not actually physically going to be doing. Your accountant or whoever's setting up your self-managed super is going to be doing a lot of the legwork on this. So it's not something you physically have to do. But they'll be creating the trust for you, registering it with the ATO and all whatnot. They'll register the trust, then they'll give you an ABN for that trust, and then once you've got all this, the trust deed and the ABN and whatnot, then you can go to your bank and open up a account that all the money will be funneled into for your super. You can just do this through your traditional bank, whether that's ANZ or Westpac or whoever you bank with. We set up ours with ANZ. There's no sort of weird ongoing cost with this account, just like any other account. It's just set aside just for your super, so don't try and start mixing your personal stuff with your super. That is a huge no-no. Don't do that. So yeah, you've got your own separate account there with all your super. Once you've set up that, then you'll have a chat with the ATO. There's only a brief sort of maybe 15-minute, 20-minute sort of chat. Well, they'll want to know your investment strategy. What are you planning on doing with your self-managed super? How are you going to allocate the funds within that super? What sort of percentages are you going to put into property shares or whatever you want to invest in within your super? And they just want to sort of have a quick chat, make sure you just sort of have half an idea what you're doing. Whether or not you put that in place down the track, they didn't seem to check up on that. They just wanted to have an initial chat just to make sure you have a rough idea on what you're planning on doing with your super. Once you've done that, then you'll be given the go-ahead to roll out of your traditional supers that you're with and then into your new set-up self-managed super fund account, which then you can also give to your employer. Say, look, this is my new super. Can you start putting my 9% or however much percentage your employer has given you into this account? And it's just a simple sort of change of paperwork on their behalf. And then that's you pretty much good to go for your self-managed super fund. This whole process, look, depending how fast your accountant is and whatnot, but it took us about 2 months to set this up. Like I said, maybe your accountant might be a bit quicker, but that's sort of how long it took us to establish our self-managed super. Okay, the cost for setting this up, look, There are a few online crowds. I haven't done much research on setting one up online. I think this is a very specialised topic, and I would recommend going to speak to an accountant or a self-managed super fund expert rather than just going online. But you can go down that road if you want. But yeah, the average cost was about $1,000 to $2,000 to establish the self-managed super fund. The big one that you got to keep an eye on is the ongoing costs. Okay, this is what sort of adds up over time, especially if you've only got that lower sort of amount in your super, where, like I was saying, it's probably not really worth it if you've only got 20 or 30, maybe even 50 grand. Because the ongoing costs to audit your trust every year and to make sure everything's all squared away, depending on how many layers of complexity you have within your fund, will be reflected in the price. Okay, so if it's a very confusing, you've got heaps of assets coming and going and whatnot, then obviously that's more work for your accountant, so he will charge accordingly. We don't have much coming and going from ours, so ours is around that sort of $2,000 a year just to keep the ongoing costs. But that can blow out to $4,000 or $5,000, and let's say you've only got 100 grand, you know, that could be sort of 4 or 5% over the space of the year, which is quite a big impact on your return on your fund. So, like I said before, I wouldn't recommend it unless you've got a good chunk of money or you're pooling a lot of people's money together to give you a good chunk of money. And one other thing you want to look out for, let's say you want to invest in property with this, you essentially need a 60% deposit of the property value that you're looking in. Reason being, the banks, okay, they'll require a minimum of sort of 30%. Not many really look at 20% deposit for the property purchase, okay, so that's the 30%. But then they also require 30% of the property value left within your super. You can't just take your entire super and put that towards a deposit for a property. That's a big no-go. So definitely bear that in mind. I wasn't explaining that in the early days and I didn't do enough research, but I learned the hard way on that one. The banks won't even really look at you unless you've got, let's say, 60% of the property value. And also most traditional banks in Australia, they don't really like investing within self-managed super funds or lending to self-managed super funds. So you may have a bit of a tough time sort of getting a loan over the line with the banks, which we were finding as well. But by all means, if you've got a good chunk there, let's say you've got that 60, 70% or something and you only need that extra 30 or 40%, then I think they would look at you a lot more favourably, because then the chance of it sort of falling over is a lot less because you've got that 30% buffer left within your super. So bear that in mind if you're thinking, okay, maybe I want to pull my money together and I'll buy an investment property and ride that one out. So just factor that one in, okay? That's a big one. But that's pretty much the basics, very basic overview on setting up a self-managed super funds, the ongoing costs and whatnot. Obviously, guys, if you enjoyed the video, smash the crap out of that like button, it'd be much appreciated. And if you want to see some more investing videos like this, then hit the subscribe button and you'll be the first to know when the next video drops. Alright guys, enjoy the rest of your day. Cheers, see ya.